the time of Daniel, where that comes in is, remember we had the kings united under the three kings, Saul, David, and Solomon, and then the kingdom was divided. So you had Israel in the north, Judah in the south. And some of the prophets that came, lots of them, remember Isaiah warned them when Israel was about to fall, but they didn't listen to him. So they got taken by Assyria. And Jeremiah and others warned them at the time of Judah when they were going to fall, but they didn't turn back to God. They forsook God. They worshiped their other things. They didn't go for what was just. They didn't go for what was good. Well, God told his people through Jeremiah that, look, you want to build yourself houses that look good? That doesn't make you a ruler. He says you should have done what was just and right in favor of the poor, but you didn't do that. Because God is saying judgment and justice for the poor is knowing me. But God let Babylon come and take his own people, which should have been following him. So then Daniel got taken into Babylon. So from Israel over to Babylon, Daniel was taken, and Daniel and his friends, it was terrible. Can you imagine being castrated, and being a servant of another kingdom? They set it in their hearts not to defile their self. And so they continued to follow God, and God gave them 10 times the wisdom as the wise men in Babylon. And then they served the king, but they served God first. And they became a witness to the true God, that even Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king, looked and said, this king, or the God that they follow, is a true God. Chapter 2, you see in Daniel, the king had a dream. Nobody could interpret it. But Daniel prayed to God. He was able to interpret the dream. And basically the dream was of a statue that the king had. Daniel told, I'll just do it quick, but Daniel told him, look, that head of gold that you see on that statue is you. There's another kingdom coming after you, Media and Persia. That's made of silver. Then this other one here, the next one, was the Greeks coming in. And then the final one, there'd be another kingdom of iron and clay. And that, of course, we know is a Roman kingdom. And a rock hits it at the feet. And then that statue begins to collapse and blows away like chaff. And the rock grows into a great mountain that fills the whole earth. And so when you think about that, who came in at that fourth kingdom, the Roman kingdom? The one who came in was Jesus. He's also called the rock. So when you see someone comes into the kingdom of God, you see one from the world system coming out, and then God's kingdom is increasing. Daniel chapter 3, you see the three that were put in the fiery furnace. Well, God, the king wanted Daniel, or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's friends, to bow down and worship that golden statue he made. Well, they wouldn't do it. So the king was furious. He had them bound and thrown into the fire. But the fire never burned them. And they saw another one in there that looked like the Son of God. Those three men were saved. God showed himself, and then the king had to admit that the God who they follow is a true God. Daniel 4 was about this tree. The king had a dream of this tree. So the tree was great big. It was fruitful. The birds of the air came and sat in the branches. It gave shade to the ground, and all the animals could come underneath it. So Daniel didn't want to tell him. He said, I wish this was on your enemy, not you. But he told him, you are the tree. God put you there. He planted you there to be a place where people could come under, and they could be taken care of there. You are going to be cut down. And a year later, what happened was the king was looking at his kingdom and saying, wow, look at all this I've built. And boom, an angel came in, struck him down on the ground, and immediately he was like an animal. He was eating grass for 7 seasons. He came out of it after the 7 seasons, but when he came out of it, he admitted that God of Daniel is a true God. God is using his people as a witness to the whole world, 500 years before Jesus. Now, Daniel chapter 5, Oh, the handwriting on the wall. You see, we have these common sayings in America. Look at the handwriting on the wall. Well, that comes from the Bible. There's lots of sayings that like that. After Nebuchadnezzar, there was another king. They were just using the holy vessels for something common. Put the wine in and let's party and let's drink. All of a sudden, they see a hand on the wall, and it's writing some stuff on there. And they did not know what it meant. It scared them. But there was a woman at that party that said, look, we used to have this guy that was for the kingdom. He will know what it means. So they had to call Daniel in. He must have been older at that time. They called Daniel in, and then he interpreted what it said. And it said, look, your time is done. And so tonight, this kingdom is going to be taken from you. And that night, the Medes and the Persians, they came in, and they conquered that kingdom. Chapter 6, that was Daniel in the lion's den. If you remember, by that time, he was in the Persian government. And even the Persian king liked Daniel. But the other wise men, of course, they didn't like Daniel. They were jealous, and they were interested in their own power. But God shut the mouth of the lions. The king was able to see that Daniel was safe. And see, that was a witness to that king that the God of Daniel was a true God. Now we have Daniel chapter 7. As I put them in pictures, I could kind of see it easier. 4 beasts. The lion that turns to the man as a man, the lion with wings, that is Babylon. That bear, that is Media Persia. And then there was a kingdom, a leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings. Well, you know, when Alexander the Great, man, when he started his kingdom, he was quick. And so he's described as a leopard. And you also see the 4 heads. Well, after Alexander the Great died, his kingdom broke up into 4 generals that took over the kingdom. And then there's a beast, you know, it's kind of a strange beast, but a 4th beast. And so these are kingdoms. We assume that's another kingdom coming, like the Roman kingdom. So remember, we had in Daniel 2 4 kingdoms. Now we have 4 kingdoms. And now in chapter 8, you get into dealing with a couple of the kingdoms. So you have a he-goat that hits the other sheep with horns, knocks him down, and his horns fall off. And then what happens is that goat, the one horn comes off, and then it grows 4 horns. Well, like I said before, Alexander the Great, when he died, he had 4 generals, and they divided the kingdom up. And so that's where you see the Seleucid Empire that was controlling Israel and Syria, that area. And then you had Ptolemy that was controlling down. Well, actually, it'll be reversed, so I should do it this way. Israel, the water, and then Egypt over here. So Ptolemy, from that side, the Grecian Empire was controlling Egypt. So then we have Daniel chapter 9, the 70 weeks. Well, everything in the book of Revelations that people look at, their view on the end times is all based on Daniel's 70 weeks. At the end of 70 weeks, which is 490 years, 70 times 7, 490, sins should have been paid for. And there was one who came in to pay those sins. That was Jesus Christ. He came in at that 490 years. And the kings of the east were looking forward to this king of righteousness that was coming in. So they went there to see this king being born. Well, kings from the east, that could be because Daniel was a wise man towards the east in Babylon. I don't know, maybe these guys were wise men that had known about Daniel and the things that he talked about, and then they were going there looking for that king. Daniel chapter 10. Well, Daniel's mourning 3 weeks. Michael comes to help him. Remember, Daniel was praying, and the angel told him God sent him to help, but there was some kind of fighting that he had to do in the heavenlies. Because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but there's spiritual principalities that are going on. 11. Okay, like I talked about, Seleucus and Ptolemy, the Maccabean revolt, destruction of Jerusalem, different things could be in chapter 11. That's kind of a big deal. Daniel chapter 12, well, waking up, spreading of the gospel, a knowledge of Christ is increased, the daily sacrifice is taken away, abomination that makes desolate. Those are some separate things that probably could be going for. And then over here, what I did was I just put a couple of things in that you see in the book of Revelations. In this beast here, you see a beast in Revelations, the feet of a bear, it's the body of a leopard, and the mouth of a lion. Well, we'll see how we have a bear, a leopard, a lion, and the horns. So you got horns on this one, and kingdoms. Well, and then also you see a deal in there, and this is Revelations 13, but you see a lamb in there that has horns, and it speaks blasphemies. So the lamb, of course, we have a lamb that represents Jesus, but this one's different. And so you have the dragon given power. They get their power from the dragon. So it appears that possibly Satan is able to work through political heads and religious heads. And if you look from the time of Jesus, maybe how Satan's been working at times, working through governments. If you look at governments of the world, even in the last 100 years, look at how many people governments have killed. I mean, you've got governments that have turned away from God, tried to have no religion. Look at how many millions of people they have killed. And then you look at the religious heads. I mean, even in the, of course, right now you got something going on with ISIS, with Islamic terrorists. Well, look back what you had in the Catholic under the popes, where they basically took the Christianity, they began to put the popes in. Some of those popes totally turned away from God and were persecuting the Christians, and they were doing tortures like you wouldn't believe, even like we see with ISIS doing now. And you see the Inquisitions, they surely weren't following God in what they were doing. And God over and over and throughout history is calling his own people, look, you are a harlot. You should be married to me, but you have turned to be a whore, whoring around with all these other worldly things, going back worshiping other gods. You'll worship what you can build out of a tree by your own hands instead of turning to me, the creator of all these things. Well, who did turn to him? The lowly, the humble, the brokenhearted, even prostitutes. When they saw Jesus, they saw the truth, and that they saw the mercy of God come to them. You know, if you turn to Jesus, there's no man between you and God except Jesus. You can turn to him wherever you're at. All you got to do is turn to Jesus and follow him. He's Lord and he's King. He's the King that was prophesied from the beginning. Jeremiah, what was I reading this morning? Was that 13? The King of righteousness, somewhere in there. But the King of righteousness, he is right with God. Jesus never sinned. You can turn to him right where you are and be saved. You don't have to go to Mecca. You don't have to go to a church building. If you turn to Jesus, you are the church. You are the called out one. And just continue to follow him as Lord and King. So I hope that blesses you with a basic overview of Daniel. I just want to get you to begin to read the Bible, because the things of God are going to help you grow and help you do good and love God and love others. All right, God bless you.